Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Lake Show Digest. I'm your host, Mateo. Right now, Lakers are queuing up for a game against the Utah Jazz at Staples. Donovan Mitchell isn't playing due to his recent ankle injury, and the Jazz are electing to sit their key guys since this is the second day of a back-to-back for them. So, no Rudy Gobert, no Mike Conley, no Derek Favors. This actually, when you looked at the schedule and you thought, "Oh, we're going against the Jazz with this banged up," no, this actually might turn into a win for us. But today, we're not going to focus on the game too much. Actually, the main story in Lakerland is that Anthony Davis might be coming back soon. Thank God. We were all informed Thursday that AD is cleared for full contact practice. Frank Vogel even remarked that although it's unlikely, it's possible that AD comes back for this Jazz series. So we got him today, and then we got him Monday. I don't think that's going to happen, but with the AD return, it feels like we're entering the next part of the season. We've been banged up and we've been in survival mode, but we're getting our superstar back soon. So that's something to look forward to finally. To talk about AD with me today is my good buddy I've known since middle school. He's got a background as an athletic trainer, and he's currently in podiatry school up in the Bay, which makes him a foot and ankle specialist. He came on the show right after AD went down. And he dropped some really good knowledge, and he's back to talk about the return of AD, what we can expect him to look like. It's my buddy Youssef. How's it going, my man?
Yo, Mateo. Great to be back and excited to have AD hopefully back soon.
I know, man. You think he's going to make it back for this Jazz series?
If I were in charge, I'd probably let him just chill.
For sure. That's been
I would definitely let him
standard operating procedure for a good 9 weeks now,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely important to get back during on-court time. But you definitely want to be cautious now because he has a history of just getting re-injured. So I think with that in the back of your mind, you want to play caution to the wind, and then perhaps even if he were to get back in there, maybe get him reps with the second unit, just so you could manage his minutes better.
Yeah. I'd like to see him come back and be on that minutes limit. And the Lakers said they would do that themselves. But even in light of that crazy Jamal Murray ACL injury, you see that? That was so rough to see.
Oof, yeah, that was in the last minute of the game. They're trying to come back.
They're trying to come back down 10, and then all of a sudden, there goes your contending year. So shit.
Yeah.
I bet after that, the LeBron and AD were like, you know what? Let's kick back for a bit. But no, I mean, AD's cleared for full contact practice, and they're making it sound like he'll be back soon because thank God, man. I mean, we've got the foot infection with Dennis Schroeder. Andre Drummond loses his big toenail. It's been rough going for us. But to focus back on AD, so I wanted to have you back on because you have this foot and ankle specialist knowledge. So AD went on Valentine's Day. It's been a little over 2 months since we saw him see the floor. We told it would be 4 to 6 weeks for him, but by the time he gets back, it's going to be 9. What do you think that extra rest does for him from a physiological perspective?
Well, I mean, the best kind of therapy you can do is rest. And these are elite athletes and they want to be out there, but sometimes you gotta save them from themselves sometimes. So, if AD's out, he's going to be going 100%. And we saw that before he re-aggravated his Achilles injury. So definitely, I think they wanted to just play this one a little more cautious and give him the extra time. I mean, the thing about practice and game minutes is so different, though. It's being in the game situation. It's definitely more psychological. You're in your head. You want to beat the other team. Practice, I mean, you see these guys every day. You're not going out there trying to kill them. So, and the same thing, they're not out there trying to come at you. But say you're playing against somebody. I'm not saying people are going to have poor intentions to try and hurt AD, but I mean they want to show up, and then this is the Lakers. Anytime the Lakers are in town, you want to show up. So it'll be tough. I mean, I saw Steve Nash did this thing with Kevin Durant recently where he was playing KD in the second unit.
He came off the bench, right?
Yeah, he came off the bench a few times, and I think that's great. I always think about European soccer leagues, how they have the A team and the B team. Typically when a star player gets hurt, they'll let the player play a couple reps with the B team before rejoining the A team, just so they get the flow of the game, the speed, everything back before they're playing at a high level. So I think
maybe we
it
could
translates.
yeah.
It translates to the NBA too. Like just put them in with the second unit and like make the other coach make the decision. Like, oh, are you going to play to AD or are you going to just play your game? So it's something to think about definitely when he comes back.
Yeah, I do wonder because there's got to be a good balance of rest, but also putting in the work to strengthen your injured area back up. Get it back to normal. We were talking about practice minutes versus game minutes, but then you could also talk game minutes versus playoff minutes, which are like 1.5 times as intense because of everything on the line, everything going through yourself mentally, and you're more inclined to push yourself physically. So yeah, my question was really like, I guess I really don't know how to phrase this, but I don't really know if you can answer, but what's the right balance between getting the right rest but also pushing yourself? Do you think the Lakers have handled this well, giving them 9 weeks versus the 4 to 6 that we were originally told?
Yeah, I mean they're doing a great job, and respect to them for not trying to rush this. I think it's great to get them game minutes, and you make a good point that regular season minutes are way different than playoff minutes for that exact reason. Because like you're in the playoff, every minute counts, and you're gonna sacrifice yourself to try and get that W. So it's definitely important to get them some game minutes. I don't know how meaningful these minutes will be against. I mean, we have a pretty tough schedule coming up, so it'll be hard to kind of ratchet the intensity down. And I think definitely locking in some wins against these resting Jazz squad today, like that'll help out a lot.
Yeah, it's all about just getting him right physically. Like I want us to win enough to get into the 6th seed, so we can avoid the play-in. But if we do the play-in, then we'll just have to deal with that. I think we'll be okay. It all comes down to, and we've been talking about this since day one on the pod. Every Laker fan, really, it's just all about getting LeBron and AD healthy, man. But he'll have that 15 minutes limit when he comes back. When he checks in for those first minutes, what do you think he's going to look like physically? I mean, you think he's going to be settling for jumpers, or you think he's going to be trying to drive to the hoop at all? Maybe a little bit of that. But what do you think?
I think his actions are going to speak to how he feels.
Good point.
So if he's coming out with that fire and he's driving, I think that's a positive sign. But if he comes out kind of loosey-goosey, kind of just like going through the motions, it'll tell us something. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how he comes out. There's no way for us to know exactly how he feels because this is how he was playing before he re-injured it. He was going hard. So he felt good, and then he still re-injured it. So it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it really is hard to tell because we can we're not inside of AD's body, and it's hard to guess how he's going to look and whatnot. But yeah, it really comes down to, like you said, how it's going to be very telling in his first minutes how he tries to push himself. What kind of moves are we going to see? Are we going to see those post ups? Are we going to see some hard drives? I don't think he's going to push himself that much, but I bet you he'll try and give something to the fans. AD's that kind of guy who wants to put on a show, and he's got a really good work ethic since coming to the Lakers. So I'm feeling pretty good about his ability to come back. But something that is concerning to me, the tricky thing about Achilles, is a player will sometimes incur other injuries due to overcompensation for the Achilles in one muscle area or another. Like we saw after Kobe got his Achilles, he came back. He didn't really look the same, but then he injures his knee, and then he's like out for the rest of the season. That's been the case for ruptured Achilles, but given that AD was just dealing with tendinosis, or what you were saying in the last pod, it might have been tenosynovitis.
Right.
Why don't you also review what the differences between that were?
So Achilles tenosynovitis is like an inflammation of the sheath that covers the Achilles. Tendinitis is actual like degeneration of the Achilles tendon itself. So I remember AD was saying there's no issue with Achilles tendon itself. He said something about the thing covering it, which made me think of tenosynovitis. But to get back to your question about other injuries, I think this comes in the training room. When you're rehabbing an Achilles injury, you don't focus on that one part. You focus on the joints above and below. So
Mhm.
he's definitely putting in some knee work. He's working on his calves, the muscles in his feet. So they're covering all their bases. And if something happens after that, it could be just due to like a freak accident or just like bad luck, essentially.
And there's been a lot of bad luck and freak accidents this year, man. I mean,
Yeah.
just with other teams, we've been fortunate. I mean, our injury situation has sucked, but we haven't had a devastating one like the Nuggets, where their season's gone. Jokic will wrap up the MVP for sure at this point. He's already kind of in the lead just because it's been a war of attrition. Every time there's been a contender or there's been a good race, one of the guys goes down. At this point, Jokic's going to run away with it, I think. But yeah, we've gotten serious injuries, but none to the point of like devastation where the year's over. So I'm thankful for that, man.
Dude, I was really holding my breath when Andre Drummond got hurt his first game with us. I was like, come on.
Are you kidding me?
I was like, dude. And then thank God, it was just this toenail that fell off. So
I know.
I don't know what's up with all these Lakers getting foot and ankle injuries. They're sounding like my future patients. I don't know.
They just want to get you a job, man. They're just like, he's in podiatry school. We just want to get him, get him in here, get him set up with the Lake Show,
Yeah, but aside from that injury scare to Dre, I mean, he looked really solid the last couple of games too. He was playing, so it's weird. It's like one day our dudes are playing in the game, and then another day they're in just like street clothes, like posing for the gram. So it's just like it's hard to follow now. Like who's hurt, like who's ready to go. I think, yeah, it'll be interesting once the playoff comes and like everyone's like, okay, am I really good to go or am I hurt? So
I know, and it's made this regular season pretty rough to watch because every time there's a marquee matchup, it's like we got the Lakers versus the Nets, except every star is out. But you should definitely watch this. And like, Jesus Christ, man. I want to see how our full strength squad, I was talking about this in the last pod, but I want to see our full strength squad versus the new Suns, the Chris Paul Suns, the newfound confidence Jazz, this version of the Bucks. I want to see versus the Nets. We haven't gotten any of that. It's been a rough year, dude. And now we're not going to see them in the playoffs versus a full strength Nuggets. So it's been funny. I saw one guy remark on Twitter that like Nuggets fans will hold on to this Murray injury as the year that they could have won it all, and they could always just fall back on that.
Oh man, get out of here with that. I mean, we're still the kings of the West. I mean, in my mind, like, okay, the Clippers, did they level up by getting Rajon Rondo, or
I think they did, just because I
you really think they did? I don't know, man.
I think they're definitely better than last year for sure, man, because Rondo was big for us just from a matchup point of view and from a competitive point of view. There are all those stories of Rondo talking strategy with the guys. He was the one who said in game, was it 6 or I think it was 6 where he's like, I forget exactly what he said, but he basically thought of a good defensive strategy on Jimmy Butler, and it ended up changing the tide of a game. So I do wonder who on our team is going to replace that playoff IQ that someone brings. I think it's going to be Mark, because he's the new smart veteran on the team. You don't think it makes the Clippers it pushes them over the edge, or you don't think it makes a difference?
I don't know. I was just like a big Lou Will guy. I mean, he kind of disappeared when the playoffs started, but I just like
he got murked on defense though. Like people always is the thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I hate to talk about the Clippers and take up the airtime for this Lakers show, but I mean, it's just I don't know. Lou Will was my guy, and he was just like an instant bucket, and I don't know. I just wish we could. I wish he stuck around with us before going to the Clippers more.
Yeah, I definitely wish that too, especially that first year that LeBron got here. That was
exactly
just a reliable bucket getter. And the young Lakers were too young for that. Speaking of young Lakers, let's just do a shout out for Julius Randle, man. Have you seen what he's been doing lately?
Oh my God. I was watching the game last night against Dallas. He was giving them buckets. He was giving them work.
Giving him work, that Julius, that strength.
Oh my gosh.
That's our guy. Yeah. We're we're looking at him like proud parents, dude. We're like, we told you Julius was good. None of you guys listened, but we told you. So
it's like, who would you rather? Was it the Julius versus Kuzma sweepstakes back then? Like, was it always going to be them two, one of them leaving? Like, I could just imagine our squad with Julius on it.
I know it wouldn't work contractually because he was in need of more money back then, so it was just never going to work. But it ended up working out for us, dude, because people can bring up like, oh, you didn't keep Julius, you didn't keep Ingram. No, but it all led to a championship. And when's the last time your team got a championship?
Yeah.
And the answer is probably a long time ago if you're not the Raptors or Warriors or Heat or Spurs,
Right.
Those things don't happen by often. So, I mean, regardless of what happens in this Laker area, we have won the most unique situation of a championship to fucking stand on. So we still got that, man.
Yeah. And I mean, tonight, is Clarkson playing tonight?
Clarkson's playing. Clarkson's going to be gunning in tribute to Kobe, man. He's like, I'm on the Lakers floor and Donovan Mitchell's out. I'm gunning for it.
Dang, man. Clarkson, he was great to watch too back then. I mean, that was the ultimate struggle squad. So I definitely we're so lucky to have the squad we have now because we were struggling back then, man.
Yeah, I know we really were, man. But yeah, I think in terms of AD, man, it's still going to be, a slow ramp up. My concerns are still that is he going to be right physically by the time the playoffs roll around? We got 15 games left, and LeBron too. He's going to be another 3 weeks. I wanted to ask too, is there any input you could give on what LeBron's injury was? And he went down March 20th. Initially, we were told 3 to 4 weeks, but a report came out a week ago that it's going to be another 3 weeks. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really surprised there, but we're going to be very careful with our stars. And that seems to be the right way to go. But what do you think about LeBron's injury and where you think he is in the recovery process and all that stuff?
So right off the bat, I mean, his injury was extremely rare for an NBA player. High ankle sprain and not your typical inversion ankle sprain. Was it Solomon Hill rolled up onto him, kind of looked like a low tackle and twisted his ankle the wrong way. Typically a high ankle sprain is 6 to 8 weeks of recovery. And
we're right on that schedule then, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's definitely really uncomfortable. It's not like spraining your ankle regularly. You and I, we've both sprained our ankles multiple times, and you know how shitty that feels. But a high ankle.
If anyone's sorry to cut you off, if everyone's played sports, you know that you've probably sprained your ankle before, and it usually bends the opposite way that LeBron's did. He would bend inwards, but this one bent outward. So that's why it was weird. Yeah,
typically all the weight falls on the outside of your foot, but this time for LeBron, all his weight went towards the inside of his foot, and
more like all Solomon's Hill weight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. Yeah. He speared his ankle. That was so BS. It was scary. I mean, it looked like he kind of hurt his knee too. Thank God it wasn't his knee.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Because it was a nasty looking injury, and if his foot was fully planted on the ground, it could have been his knee. So I don't know if LeBron had the presence of mind to kind of okay, don't put all my weight on this while this guy's falling into me so I don't hurt my knee. But
I wouldn't be surprised if he did have that presence of mind, yeah.
Yeah, because it could be really, you've seen it before in football. If your foot is firmly planted and somebody's coming at you at the side like that, you can just blow your knee totally. And we're in a way different situation than we are now. If LeBron was dealing with an MCL or ACL sprain, that would be horrible.
Yeah, I was thinking, and you might have some input on this too. I think knee injuries are probably the worst. I mean, foot and ankle. Achilles is probably up there with an ACL, but in general, it seems like ankle injuries are a little easier to come back from. I mean, Paul George, we saw what happened to his ankle back at the USA scrimmage. That was grotesque, and then he's playing at an all-NBA level and shit. So you think ankle injuries are a little more easier to manage than than knee?
Yeah, I think typically they're easier to manage because the muscle groups that work on the ankle are smaller than the muscle groups that work on the knee. So when you look at a joint, you worry about what's going on after the joint. So in medical terms, more distal, and what's more proximal, like closer to the body. So with the ankle, you have your foot muscles and then your calf muscles. With the knee, you have your calf muscles and your quads and hamstrings, and then your hip that you got to work on in rehab. So typically so when you blow your Achilles, it's pretty normal that you lose strength in your calf. When you blow your ACL or something in your knee, you lose quad strength, and you end up getting some weird hamstring stuff too. So it's definitely more difficult to get back from like a torn ACL, but Achilles, ACL, I put them at the same level because they're just super traumatic. You need surgery, and yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually didn't know that about knee injuries versus ankle, but it makes sense if you bust your knee up, then you have more muscle areas to worry about, and then you got to worry about recovering that specific area that was broken, and then you got to have it working in conjunction with the rest of the muscle groups that it's used to working with. Would you say that kind of sums it up? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, did Saquon Barkley blow his ACL this year? I think he did.
I think so, but we all know Murray just did, so we were just talking about
I mean, it's really chilling to see what happens to like these pro athletes' quad muscles while they're recovering from ACL surgery. It loses all muscle tone. And that's like the first thing you do is you strengthen the quad before you do anything else.
Loses all muscle tone. Interesting. Yeah.
It looks like I don't want to call it a noodle, but like it's different. You could tell the difference when you put them side by side. Their quads aren't the same.
Wow, didn't know that. I mean, Clay was even dealing with his ACL, but from back in the Raptors series, and did he? I don't know if he blew out the same one or if it was the other one just a year later trying to come back, but it's been a real problem these past year or two. It seems like the stars are getting more injured than normal, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like the pressure of just playing in high intensity games. Is it the schedule? I think the players were complaining about the schedule, having like more frequent back-to-backs and having condensed season.
Yeah. Even before this condensed year, I still felt like stars were getting more hurt, but I don't have the exact data on that. But what you said about back-to-backs and the condensed schedule, there's been a movement to kind of make the schedule even shorter. I'd rather have a shorter schedule, more rest days. I'd care about the overall product on the floor a little more than I care about seeing the Lakers more often. If my guys are more rested and the other team is more rested, then better basketball for all of us in the end. But we know it's a little different when you got to take into account owners and TV contracts and all that stuff. So that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that NBA as entertainment would be better served with coaches not having to load manage. Like what? Like it's like, okay, you and me have a job. We show up and then we're just like, one day, you know what? I'm load managing. I can't come in today. Like you can't do that.
Yeah, I know you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, so like you guys just need a personal day and like you're supposed to go to work and you're getting paid. Like, all right, I don't know if I vibe with that. But a theory that I had on why we're seeing so many injuries nowadays is that players are getting exposure to elite level training earlier now. So like you see players in high school level getting AAU, having the best trainers, strength and conditioning, physical therapists, massage therapists. I think we're just like outperforming the limits of what the body can handle. So like I don't think teenagers and high schoolers are supposed to be getting this crazy in the gym nowadays. So like when they get to their adult career, like they've already experienced so much stress on their joints that it just takes one little thing to kind of throw them off. So I don't know, maybe like the old school players, I mean, they were like drinking hot dogs and drinking beer and eating hot dogs before games.
Eating beer and drinking hot dogs and smoking joints in the locker room. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so I
old
mean
70s way, yeah.
now everyone's in like crazy compression, doing these crazy exercises from a young age, and that might be one of the effects of it. Is just that you're more prone to injury because your muscles are so big, you're so flexible, you're able to make all these crazy cuts, and the one time that your ligament or tendon blows could be catastrophic. So that's my theory on it, but we'll
I
see.
think it's definitely possible. I mean, I know from a young age, I was always kind of told, don't start lifting weights too young. You know, I know
Right,
my
right.
cousin who's a physical personal trainer now. He started when he was in like 8th grade. But around that age, if you're kind of lifting, you know, like I don't know, 6th or 7th grade or sooner, that was always kind of frowned upon. Like, don't be seriously lifting weights at that age. But you know, with how competitive sports leagues are, especially the upper level ones for kids, would not be
Yeah,
surprised if that was the case. I think you make a good point though. KD also made the point that the game nowadays is just faster and more athletic, and it's played at a more physically demanding level. And I mean, all you got to do is watch an old game from the 80s or the 80s, even the 90s. It was a different kind of physical stress back then. I feel like this one is more an athletic stress, and the other one was more like a you're going to get beat up stress. You know, the game is just faster now. It is um, more guys on the 3 point line, people covering more ground. I think yeah, the style, the way the game is played, is definitely contributing to these bigger injuries. So KD was also advocating for a shorter schedule as a result of that. If we had a shorter schedule, I think I'd like to see it around maybe like 60 games or something like that.
yeah,
Even 70 over the time of a normal length of an NBA schedule, because we're getting 70 now. It's just so condensed. It's just so damn condensed. Everyone's getting hurt because of that, man. Back to backs, and it feels like every Laker game this year, there's only been one day off. Whenever there's
yeah.
a 2 day rest between games, I'm like, oh, this is a rarity, boys. We got a day off. We got to enjoy this. You
Right,
know?
right. Yeah, I mean there's hoops on every day. So I mean if you love watching any kind of hoops, it's great for you. But if you care about the quality, who's on the court, it ain't the same.
I know. I just want to see everyone get healthy because I want to see the best level of competition possible, man. But yeah, going back to the injury in terms of LeBron, he's still kind of in that 6 to 8 week schedule. He'll probably have like a week before he's got to ramp up for playoffs. What do you think about that in terms of his ramp up? You know, any exercises that the personal trainers or the athletic trainers will be doing to have him ramp up for the playoffs like that, you know, in his unique situation?
I think LeBron is in one of the most unique and privileged positions any player could be in the league. He spends top dollar on his health, and I can guarantee you he's going to be ready the second he's back on the court, without a
It's gonna
doubt.
be impressive because I'm thinking the same thing too. Like I'm, I just have so much belief in LeBron after this last playoff run that I just feel like he's going to be ready. Um,
Yeah, totally agree. I think he's chilling, man. He's on the court, he's coaching, he's watching. He's like, you know what, this is the first time I'm getting some time to myself, um, relaxing. He's not talking about his injury as much. Um, so I think he's just loading up. I think he's loading up, and I'm really excited for when he gets back.
yeah, ultimately, it's kind of like a sort of off season for Anthony Davis, at least. You know, he had the shortened off season, then he had to ramp up, but then he's got this 2 month break, albeit he's dealing with an Achilles issue. But he looked like
Right.
he needed a mental break, honestly, because in the beginning of this year, yeah, he just looked like he didn't want to be there, to be honest, during a lot of plays.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, I hope he gets a sabbatical in some kind of way, and he's definitely
Yeah,
gotten it. He's
we
go
we
for it.
were talking about it the last time we were here. Like, man, we as a squad would really benefit if we could just take a bye week, just like 1 week, whatever. Play PS5, do your thing, like forget about
Mhm.
hoops for a while. So I think that's what LeBron has been doing. I mean, he's been mentally locked in for so long, for so many games in the playoffs, in the regular season, never takes a day off. So I wouldn't say that injury has given him a good reason to take time off, but I mean, you kind of need to take time off if you're hurt.
It is what it is. He's getting time off. I'd be a little more nervous about if he played every damn game I'd be a little more nervous about what could happen in the playoffs in terms of injuries if he played every damn game leading up to the playoffs in this short ass off.
Right.
And speaking of taking breaks, who needs a break, man? KCP, because he is banged up.
Oh my gosh.
I would like to see that man get a sabbatical too. Just give him a week off, guys. Let Ben McLemore get some shots up. KCP needs to heal, but we're not in a position to do that right now. Maybe when AD gets back, maybe when we get AD and Bron, and we won't need KCP that much.
Right.
He's another guy. Are there some other guys on the team you think would benefit from a little mini vacation?
It feels like Kuz is on a mini vacation every week. Like real talk. I don't know. Is this guy hurt? Like I don't know. I have him on fantasy.
Well, he hurt his calf
and
recently. He hurt his calf.
He did. All right.
I don't know.
I kind of been out of the game for a little.
I don't know if that was his Instagram escapades or something. Like I don't know.
I mean, it might be both, but I mean, it's just like I never know. Like, is he playing tonight? Is he suiting up? Like, it's hard, but I mean, who else needs a break? I mean, Caruso is ready to go.
Caruso needs a break for a little bit, honestly. But he's looked good in the last couple of games. He's looked pretty good, but he was kind of banged up and not really playing well. Like the defense wasn't as sharp. But I'd say since that Nets game, he's kind of turned a corner. Like I think he's improved as a facilitator. We've talked about it a lot on the pod. Honestly, it'd be great if they could all just take a week off, just recharge. But we can't do that with player standings.
Just choose somebody, give them a day off, and then just rotate. Whatever, 12 days, 12 games, one person. Today's your day off. Yeah. I mean, if everyone else is doing it, everyone's load managing. I'm like, bro, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. But despite go for it.
I was gonna say LaMarcus. I mean, he just retired, but before that, he was taking games off for unknown reason, and it's kind of unfortunate to see him retire now because I was kind of curious about that. I was like, okay, why isn't LaMarcus getting minutes? He hasn't played any meaningful basketball in I don't know how long, ever since he was a Spur. So it's really unfortunate to see him retire, but that's why you never know when somebody's load managing, like what these bigger problems could be. It could be something like way more serious, like a heart thing. So
yeah, and LaMarcus thing was sad. It really came out of nowhere. I liked our chances against the Nets after we saw LaMarcus because, hey, that was your big pickup, and you still don't have anyone to protect the rim. But it's still sad to see a guy go like that. But I want to wrap things up now. I think we're both feeling good about our guys' chances of coming back from these injuries, man. You feeling good about how we're going to look after we get Bron and AD get back?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Sure, man.
Thanks for LeBron is going to be the same guy. He's going to be that guy.
You're calling it now. He's going to be that guy coming back, hit the ground, playoff mode.
Yes, sir. He's going to be all right. Whatever. Put us in the play-in. I don't want to see us in the play-in, just because that's just extra games that we don't need to be in. But when he's back, he'll be back. He'll probably be wearing some super high tops, but he'll be back. Yeah.
And hey, if we do fall in the play-in, then maybe it's good that we'll get a little dose of that that fighting for your life mentality. That might be good for this team because they still need to gel a little bit more in terms of their overall chemistry. But thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for imparting your knowledge on the nature of their injuries, and appreciate your input, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime. I'm happy to be back.
Yep. Take it easy. Later, man.
Yeah, man.